What is going on, everybody? Thank you for joining this Sunday afternoon edition of Couz's Corner. Wanted to come to you live today, just kind of give you my thoughts after having 24 hours, excuse me, to sleep on this game and soak it in. Pardon me. I might have to go get some water. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Don't know what happened. I just couldn't talk all of a sudden. Had something in my throat or something. But anyway, thank you all for jumping in here for this Sunday afternoon live edition of Couz's Corner. Wanted to just kind of, I've had 24 hours here to sleep on this game, to think about it, to read comments on X from other fans, listen to some other shows, get their thoughts. Things aren't good. Things are not good. The fan base is fed up. Even fans who have been optimistic, even fans who have been backing Coach Brown and the staff, people are giving up, and it's not a good look. And even some of the people in the media are seeing it. They're seeing, one of the comments made by, I think it was Mike Casaza, said that Renbecker was not a happy camper, or may have been Chris Hall over on SI, but nonetheless, one of the podcasters said, "Hey, Renbecker was not a happy camper after that game, nor should he have been." So, you've got players retweeting stuff out that aren't, about the coaching staff. You've got players' parents was on Twitter last night complaining about coaching. Jordan Leslie has pretty much gotten completely off of Twitter. I mean, it's unraveling. It seems to be unraveling a little bit in Morgantown, which is what happens when teams are losing. I mean, it comes with the territory, right? Now, they do have Big 12 play coming up. They do have a team coming up this weekend in Kansas or next weekend, I should say, in Kansas, who is also dealing with the same situation. They're not meeting expectations. They're 1-2 on the year, just like West Virginia. They've beaten an FCS team and lost to a Power 4 team, and then a Group of 5 team actually in UNLV. So they're kind of reeling a bit as well. So it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting game. But right now, man, things are just, the fan base is just fed up. I mean, that's all there is to it. And, there are a few people out there that are still holding out hope and trying to be positive. And I want to address a couple of those comments. Okay. I also want, and I'm going to do that during the show, I'm also going to give you my updated season prediction record prediction, which has definitely changed. And we're just going, and I'm going to talk about some of Neal Brown's comments he made in the postgame press conference. Real quick, though, before we do, first I want to show this. PW Riggs, who's a VIP member here. Thank you, PW Riggs, for jumping on, my man. Thank you all for being on here, whether you're watching on X or on YouTube. I want to give a quick shout out to my channel sponsor, Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, attorneys at law. Thank them for helping me keep the lights on. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians, because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. All right, thank you so much for sitting through that. And again, if you need a medical malpractice or a personal injury attorney and you're in West Virginia or Virginia, give them a call at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. All right. So let's talk about Neal Brown's press conference. He made last night after the game, I was obviously emotional, was upset, aggravated, just like almost all the fans were, and was, still up in the air on how I felt about Coach Brown. And then he made a comment in his press conference that kind of sealed it for me. And here's the quote. Someone asked him, I guess, about personnel or about players or whatever. And he said, and I quote, you are what you are. We have to play better. We have to coach them better. Our personnel is our personnel. It's not like we got people waiting in the bullpen, end quote. Two things there. One, it sounds like he's throwing his players under the bus and blaming them for everything. That's what that sounds like. Now, maybe that's not his intent, but it sure came across that way. And number two, if you don't have anybody in the bullpen and you're not happy with your personnel, who's responsible for bringing the players to West Virginia University? Who's responsible for recruiting? Who's responsible for who plays for the team? Neal Brown and his staff. So for him to act like, well, that's all we got, we're doing the best we can. Well, you know what? Half the job, if not more, is recruiting. And that falls at his feet. So again, the buck stops with Neal Brown in that regard. And, these little statements he throws out does not help anything. As a matter of fact, he may have just made his players mad at him for making those kind of stupid statements. Let's be honest. So I was not happy with that comment. Let me see what WV Fan 13, who's also a VIP member, has had to say. He says, I watched the press conference after the game when he said we don't have many in the bullpen ready. That's a huge slip in what he is truly thinking. That is his job. Get them ready. That is camp. Absolutely. Absolutely. If they're not ready, it's your fault. If they're in the wrong position, it's your fault. And if they're not good enough, then you shouldn't have recruited them. Period. All right. What did Matthew Swanson have to say here that I missed? Oh, yeah, the amount of hype. Yeah, great point. They hyped the team up like they were the greatest team they've ever had. They did something similar in 2022, if you all remember. Especially in the secondary, they talked about how athletic they were, how athleticism was better than experience. They basically, what they do every offseason is they take whatever they want us to think as fans to make sure we support the team, to make sure we're optimistic, and they spin it to fit their narrative. And we drink the Kool-Aid. Us as fans, we drink the Kool-Aid, we get excited, we get optimistic, and then they go out and they let us down. But again, I'm not blaming the players here. Yes, the players have to execute. I'm not saying the players are totally blameless here, but at the end of the day, he's the one who recruits the players. They're the ones who put them in the position. They're the ones who teach them how to play the position. And buck stops with them. P.W. Riggs makes a point here. He says losing any coach this year will not help. Depends. P.W. Riggs. I may talk about that in a minute. I'm not sure how it can hurt. I mean, especially on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, I was unhappy with some of the offensive play calls and whatnot yesterday, but offense did not lose that football game yesterday. Defense did, in my opinion. Could the offense have made more plays? Absolutely. But they played good enough to win. The defense did not. So some changes need to be made on the defensive side of the football, in my opinion. Neal Brown said that, what was it he said, in a previous press conference? He said, if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, it's the definition of insanity, right? I didn't see a lot of changes. Now, the earsports.com guys said that apparently Coach Leslie last week started working with the safeties. Instead of having Shadon Brown try to coach up both positions, the corners and safeties, Coach Leslie worked with the safeties. Well, it didn't work. At least it didn't seem to. So I don't know if Shadon Brown is the issue. I don't know if Jordan Leslie's the issue or both or something else. I don't know. Whatever it is, something's got to get fixed. Because when you look at this schedule here, a lot of good quarterbacks. The quarterbacks West Virginia has to face going forward are Jalen Daniels, the quarterback at Oklahoma State, Bowman, Alan Bowman, who, by the way, is playing pretty good football this year, Rocco Becht at Iowa State, Avery Johnson at Kansas State, who's getting better with every game, and he's maybe playing really good football by the time he gets to Morgantown. You have Noah Fafita at Arizona. Then you have Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati, who's been playing pretty decent. Baylor, UCF with KJ Jefferson. Then you close the year out at Texas Tech and Baron Morton. So a lot of good quarterbacks on the schedule going forward. So and good receivers to go along with those good quarterbacks. And they might, I mean, they've allowed 300 passing yards 2 weeks in a row. It might continue every week. And it's going to be hard to win a lot of games like that, especially in this league, in this conference. Now let's address some of the things the fans were saying as far as the safeties. They don't even have a safeties coach, PW Riggs. That's Shadon Brown is coaching both safeties and corners. The safeties coach took a job at another school in the offseason, and they didn't replace him. Front four played well. They did play well, WV Fan 13. Absolutely. But if you're saying Shadon Brown is the problem, then, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Now, some of the things fans are saying that I want to address as far as why they should not hire a new coach. I got my little notes here. It says the first one is our expectations at West Virginia are too high. First of all, and here's what I put on Twitter, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically, we already have lower expectations than a lot of other programs have. Our expectations at West Virginia are basically to win 8 to 9 games a year and compete for a conference title every so often. At least 1 or 2 times a decade. We should be at the top of it now. And now with Oklahoma and Texas out, I think it's fair to expect it even more than that. West Virginia should be in the top half of this conference every single year, and there's no reason they can't. They might have a bad year and a slip up occasionally. That's understandable. But they should be getting 8 to 9 wins almost every year, and with the occasional 10 and 11 win season. That is the expectations, and that has been the historic success at West Virginia. We also expect to be ranked in the top 25, which we have not done one time since Neal Brown's been the coach at West Virginia. I was comparing him to Dana Holgorsen. Now, I recommend you all go back, go to Facebook, and I actually shared it on my X account at Couz206. Eugene Napoleon, former West Virginia player, did about a 20 to 25-minute live on his Facebook account talking about this situation. I recommend you all go watch it, but one of the things he talked about was Dana Holgorsen's winning percentage. He took the winning percentages. He went from Don Nehlen to Neal Brown, and each coach's winning percentage at West Virginia. All of them were in at least 60% plus, except Neal Brown, who's at 50%. Dana Holgorsen was right at 60%. So what I did, I took out Dana Holgorsen's the year that they were in the Big East, and I looked just at the years West Virginia was in the Big 12. Winning percentage was 57%. Well, I thought, that's not fair either because Neal Brown has played a lot more Power 4 opponents in non-conference games. So I looked at their conference schedules. Dana Holgorsen was 34-30 in the Big 12. Neal Brown's 20-24. Now, you might say, well, Couz, the Neal Brown defenders might say, but Couz, Dana Holgorsen was playing Kansas and Iowa State when they were bad, and that's fair. But then we also have to include the fact that Neal Brown, at least last year, played Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, and Houston in their first year in a power conference. That needs to be counted against him then, does it not? So bottom line is he's not meeting even West Virginia's expectations. We're not asking for national titles. We're asking to be nationally relevant, to be ranked in the AP top 25 almost every year, which, by the way, Dana Holgorsen was every year but one. Dana Holgorsen had this team ranked in the AP top 25 every single year they were in the Big 12 except one, and that was that 2013 season when they had a losing record, when they were basically rebuilding after he lost Geno and Tavon and Stedman and that team. It took him 1 year to rebuild. Then they started winning again. Now, they had a lot of 7-win seasons in there. That's fair. But they were also making bowl games. They had the 10-win season in 2016. they were at least in the conversation for the Big 12 title. Now, there were a lot of things about Dana Holgorsen I didn't like. His defense has usually struggled. I didn't like the way he left. He wasn't as good of an ambassador for the university as Neal Brown is. There's a lot of things that, but when you're looking at strictly wins and losses, Eddie Rodriguez was like 67, 68%, I believe, in his time, somewhere in that ballpark. Bill Stewart actually had the highest win percentage. His was in the 70s. And Don Nehlen was right around 60%, which is about the same as Dana. But so you can say the schedule with Neal's playing a tougher schedule, and that's all fair. But I have eyes to watch football with. And what my eyes are telling me is that you have a team and a coaching staff making the same mistakes year in and year out, losing games in the same way year in and year out. They're unable to win close games in most cases. How many games has West Virginia been that close to winning and not been able to pull it out or allowed a comeback in the final minutes? You remember the Pitt game in 22, the Houston game, the Oklahoma State game last year. I mean, it goes on and on and on. P.W. Riggs, I'm actually, he says, answer me this. Players are ranked 1 to 5, talking about stars. We are not going to get to 5 stars, and sometimes we get a 4 or 2. Most are 2s and 3s, and teams we play are 4s and 5s, if I'm making sense. P.W. Riggs, that's not accurate anymore. Oklahoma and Texas are not on in this conference anymore. West Virginia is now in a conference with their peers. And actually, one of the things I had on the list, one of the things West Virginia wants to talk about is we can't get the talent here. Well, and can't afford because we can't pay players enough NIL money. We can't get good enough talent. Well, here's my thing. Kansas State and West Virginia, West Virginia is on about the same level resource-wise as Kansas State, Iowa State, and pretty close to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's not that far ahead of us either. Kansas State doesn't have an issue winning football games, do they? They win 8-9 games a year, every year. They've even won a conference title. Chris Kleiman was hired the exact same year as Neal Brown. They already have a conference championship. Neal Brown hasn't even been ranked in the top 25. So the excuse that we don't have the resources, to me, all you have to do is look in your own conference, and that argument goes out the window. And you wad it up, and you throw it in the garbage because I don't think it passes the sniff test. And Iowa State's another one. They at least played in a Big 12 title game a few years back, 21, I believe it was. They didn't win it, but they played in it. They've won more consistently than Neal Brown has since he's been there. Now, they haven't started conference play yet. I get it. So, but I'm just telling you, the teams that West Virginia has to play, almost every single analyst will tell you Pitt is not a good football team. Pitt is not a very good football team. There are teams on West Virginia's schedule much better than Pitt. So that brings us to the updated record prediction. I predicted 8-4 going into the year. I had us losing to Penn State, beating Albany, beating Pitt, beating Kansas, losing to Oklahoma State, losing to Iowa State, beating Kansas State, losing to Arizona, beating Cincinnati, Baylor, UCF, and Texas Tech. Okay, 8-4 was my prediction. No, I do not, Ears fan. I think Kansas may be worse, but not sure that's. But I'm not real confident in saying that. But here's all right. We're 1-2 right now. Kansas. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we beat Kansas, okay? Because Kansas is playing terrible right now. We're not beating Oklahoma State. They're playing good football right now, and Alan Bowman can actually throw the football this year really well. They have really good receivers. And it's at Oklahoma State. That's a loss. Iowa State, they're ranked now. They're playing good football. Their defense with John Heacock will probably limit West Virginia's offense. And they have Rocco Becht at quarterback who can flat out throw the football, and they have really good receivers. Not winning that game. Kansas State, did you see them play yesterday? We're not winning that game. And even it's at home, still not winning it. At Arizona. Now, they didn't look great against Kansas State. But when you look at the fact that they have arguably the best quarterback receiver combo in the conference, they might put up 300 yards by themselves against us. Just those two guys. So I'm not, and it's at Arizona. I'm not confident in that game. I think we can still beat Cincinnati, still beat Baylor. I still think we can beat UCF because they run the ball better than they pass it, and our run defense is good. So there's UCF, Baylor, Cincinnati, Kansas. That's 4 wins, 5 counting the Albany game. So right now we're at 5 wins, and we have Texas Tech to close out the season. They just put up 66 points yesterday. And they put up 52 points against Abilene Christian. They didn't put up as many against Washington State, but as we saw last night, Washington State's a pretty good football team. And we all know the kind of offense they like to play at Texas Tech. They might put up 50 points on West Virginia. I'm changing my record prediction to 5-7. And I hate to be that negative, but when you look at the quarterbacks, the way the secondary is struggling, and Neal Brown basically saying there's nothing he's saying there's nothing he can do about it, right? Other than more practice. 5-7. With 6-6 probably being the ceiling. And again, I'm not throwing shade at the coaches. I'm not throwing shade at the players. I think they're in most cases are playing their tails off. Yes, they need to execute better. Not saying they don't. But I went back and watched the last couple drives of that game yesterday. I don't know how many. I didn't notice this when I watched it live, but I heard it talked about on a podcast, and I wanted to go back and see it with my own eyes. That last drive of the game yesterday, they had Josiah Trotter on the bench and Rodney Gallagher in the game. Rodney Gallagher, a wide receiver who only played 9 snaps on defense in the entire game, who has never played corner and is just now learning the position. They had him in the game on the last drive with arguably our best defensive player, Josiah Trotter, on the sidelines. Now, somebody make that make sense to me. And that was probably I'm assuming that would be a Jordan Leslie decision. Some of the decisions made yesterday in that game were absolutely mind-boggling. But again, it's the same crap we've been seeing every single season, pretty much, since they've been here. Last year, Beanie Bishop helped things in the secondary. And I thought, hey, man, this coaching staff just proved they can coach these guys up. But it looks like maybe that was just an anomaly. I don't know. Maybe it was an anomaly. Maybe that's more on Beanie Bishop for working his tail off and doing what he does. Because they've not been able to do the same thing with the players they got now. And again, if it's the players, if they're not as good as Beanie Bishop, then find better players. I did PW Riggs. And again, that was a player error. I'll agree with you on that one. The player, he stood there, the up guy on the punt, let the guy run right by him. That was a player mistake. I totally agree with you on that. That was one play though. But when you look at defense, I'm mainly focusing on the defense here right now. The defense, even after that, they were up 10. But PW Riggs, even after that, they come back and went up 10 points. They were up 10 points after that, PW Riggs. Come on, man. I love you, but I'm not sure how you take everything in turn. This team could be 1-11, and PW Riggs would be happy with the coaches, I believe. Love you, my man. All right. Jordan Cruz says you had also already shown this season that when your pass rush doesn't get home, QBs have broken contain and hurt you scrambling. So how do you not account for that on the final drive? Bingo. You have one linebacker in the game. One linebacker in the game. Makes no sense to me. Stormy Cyclone, thank you for this comment. He says, as an outsider, it was tough to see West Virginia this way. I seen ISU offense that way too, but I can count on the defense. Hey, Jordan, if you're still listening, do you want to hop on here with me, man? If you do, let me know. I'll shoot you the link. I'd love to have you on with me, man. I need somebody to help me make sense of some of this stuff, brother. If you can't, I understand. No pressure. But yeah. Let me see what other comments we got. Who's the first to transfer? I don't even want to think about that right now. Yeah, they did miss some tackles. They had a chance to wrap him up and they didn't. So, the front wasn't perfect, but they gave the defensive line they pretty much single-handedly brought West Virginia back in this game, at least on the defensive end, with the pressure they were able to get on Holstein for majority of the third quarter, into the second quarter, third quarter, and then most of the fourth quarter. I don't think the coaches, you hear all the time how. Okay, thank you. All right, Jordan, no problem, brother. They talk about all the time how they're constantly moving guys around to different positions. They're constantly, I just put a guy to position and leave him there, for crying out loud. Because apparently they're not playing their position very well in some cases. I think they may need more snaps. I think they may need more snaps at that position before you move them somewhere else. Think about that. Let the guy get good at the position he's playing before you try to move him somewhere else. I don't understand that logic. Again, Appalachia A-Field, I don't know yet, man. To be honest, it's going to depend on how they do. It really is. If they go on, if they're losing, I doubt I'll make the trip. I just, sad thing is I've already bought the tickets. I'll have to probably eat the cost, but there's no reason to add more cost in with a hotel room, food, drink, all that either. Rocky Statue 999 says, thank you for the donation, Rocky Statue. I love your name, by the way. Says, I'd be so much happier in the G5. We could win their little trophies and be happy. We'll never competent in the new HP4, soon to be P2, not enough money or recruiting ability. Join the G5 and win. Rocky, I respect your opinion, but I totally disagree, man. And here's why. You may not have been on here when I said this, but Kansas State has less resources than West Virginia, and they've won a Big 12 championship. While Texas and Oklahoma were in the league, by the way. Let me make that clear. Okay. Oklahoma State has slightly more resources than West Virginia, but they're not a blue blood. They don't have blue blood level resources. They're not that far ahead of West Virginia resource-wise. Mike Gundy wins 9-10 games a year. Iowa State doesn't have more resources than West Virginia. They're winning 7-8 games a year. And Kansas State, to me, is the perfect example because Chris Kleiman was hired at Kansas State the exact same year Neal Brown was. To me, they are the perfect example. And everybody can make the excuse about then leaving the cupboard bare or whatever. And that's valid. It was valid for the first 1 or 2 years. But he's in year 6. That's no longer an excuse. There's the transfer portal. There's recruiting. And there's coaching. All three of those are the responsibilities of the coaching staff, and they're not getting it done, period. See what other comments we have here. Gallagher is not being developed. The staff does not develop any talent. WVU Earl says the coaching is a problem, and the missed tackles was unbelievable. Yeah, their tackling has regressed this year. There's the pass coverage has regressed, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I love Garrett Green. I've defended the young man. His play, he does not look the same to me. I know I've been talking mostly about defense. Garrett started the game out like 6 of 7 or 7 of 8, and then he went like 9 of 21 the rest of the game with 2 picks. Now, the last pick was kind of understandable. He was trying to make a play to win the game there with, the final seconds. But He's overthrowing guys. Even on the deep balls that he was completing a year ago, he's missing those now. He's not running with the ball like he was. It almost looks to me, and it may not even be his fault. It almost looks to me like they're trying to force him to be a pocket quarterback. There you go, Chris. He needs to run around and make plays. Garrett Green is a football player, man. Let him run around and be a football player. Let him make plays with his feet. Let him do what he needs to do. If he needs to limit it to 1 or 2 reads and then run, then let him do it. That's what he did last year. It worked. Garrett Green's not a pocket quarterback. He's a quarterback who needs to be rolling out of the pocket, throwing on the run, or running the football. I'm not saying he can never throw from the pocket, but man, let him be himself. It's funny to me when you look back. Brandon, great point. Brandon Bailey, who's a channel VIP member, says, I think Green is putting too much pressure on himself and he's not running like he did. He don't seem happy. Yeah, I don't know. I see what you mean. His body language has definitely been I saw where Mountaineer Paul put that on his Twitter account. His body language is different this year, and I've noticed it too. But again, what's up with that? You look back, everybody remembers Jarrett Dagey being here, right? Well, Jarrett Dagey, was it his junior year? Was it night? See, Jarrett Dagey was a good quarterback at West Virginia when he first got here. He was playing pretty well, if you guys remember. He wasn't great, but he was playing fairly well. And it's like he regressed over the course of his career. You know what I mean? It's like almost like he got worse. Now, I used to put a lot of that on the offensive line play. But then JT Daniels comes in. They bring in JT Daniels from the portal. JT Daniels starts the season out playing pretty darn well, right? By the halfway through the season, he couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. He had regressed. His body language looked different. There is just something that's missing with the quarterbacks in this program. Garrett has gotten a lot better. I'm not saying he hasn't, but they either don't reach their full potential, or for some reason they're not put in the positions they're put in, or I don't know if it's a scheme, the play calling, something. They try too hard. They try to do too much. I don't know what it is. I'm grasping for straws, but they seem to regress a bit in their senior year, and I don't get it. Rocky Statue, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. He says, I actually agree. I just needed to hear someone tell me we have a shot. LOL. How do I join members only? I don't see a button anywhere. Who are realistic coaching hires? Green with a crop coach and G5. All right. It's a lot there. First off, on the members thing, if you don't see a button, a lot of times it depends on how you're watching the show. If you don't see the button, you can go to my channel homepage on YouTube. Just go to Couz's Corner homepage. Right beside my profile photo is a join button. The perks there is you get shout outs. You get first top priority in chats. And occasionally I will release videos early for members only. Sometimes I'll limit the ads in that. I have found out recently that most of my members have YouTube Premium anyway. So maybe that's not that much of a perk, but I do release early videos on occasion. And I do plan to do more things for members only down the road. I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. But now I don't see who are realistic coaching hires. Just off the top of my head, I hate to even get into this right now until something happens. But a couple names that I've seen on social media that I kind of like are Jason Candle from Toledo and the coach at UNLV, and his name was totally escaped me. Barry Odom. Those are the first two that come to off the top of my head. If they decide to move on from Coach Brown, those are the first two guys that would be on my list that I can think of. I know a lot of people, and I want to address this too. WVU fan 13 says Couz is coaching. These guys don't know how to coach on this level. I see Jimbo Fisher's name being brought up a lot. I see Rich Rod. First off, Rich Rod's team's 0-3 right now. Don't need to bring Rich Rod back. I loved Rich Rod, what he did here, but that ship has sailed. Also, Jimbo, look, Jimbo's a heck of a recruiter. I'll give him that. But the way he left Florida State wasn't good, and his run at Texas A&M didn't go well either. So, and plus the money Jimbo's going to want to coach is likely going to be more than West Virginia can pay. Let's just be honest. So for those three reasons, I'm not sure Jimbo's a good name either. Matthew Zervos, I actually said that same thing on X yesterday, but then somebody brought it to my attention. Sorry, wrong comment. Somebody brought it to my attention. He's not even on the staff anymore. So I went and checked, and sure enough, he's not. Jeff Castile was an analyst on the staff for a few years. He's no longer on the staff. So now I don't know if he'd be willing to come back or not. But, that being said, if he's retired and, ready to get out of coaching, then he's probably not going to want to deal with. I talked to someone who told me that that Castile did not really want to coach today because of he didn't like the new era of college football and didn't really want to coach in that era. But again, that could be, I don't know how accurate that is. Corey the Punk says Neal Brown cannot develop players. It's that simple. Thank you for the donation, Corey. I used to defend Neal in that, I really did, but because you see, Zach Frazier develop. You see, the Steele brothers. There are guys on the team that developed and are Bryce Ford Wheaton that played multiple years under Coach Brown that did make it to the NFL, but he's not doing it at the same rate Dana was doing it. And sometimes maybe the players are just that good. You know what I mean? Sometimes maybe the players are putting in the work and doing their own, the players have to take credit for that, get some credit for that too, not just the coach. Michael Lenart says Gallagher is running around like a chicken with his head cut off on defense. Watch the Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but I'm not blaming him for that, Michael. The kid's never played the position before, and he's being thrown out there against Power 5 teams, man. I just don't think it's fair to him. I don't think it's fair to Rodney to be put in that situation. I really don't. Now, what that tells me is if they think he's the best option, they're in trouble. If you've got a kid that's never played the position who's an offensive player and he's one of your best defensive backs when you've got a dozen or more defensive backs on your roster, that's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah, he did beat Alabama one time, Jackson, but it was one game, man. And look, if they felt like he was the best hire, I'd get on board with it and support it. But I have nothing against him. But I just don't, in today's landscape, he runs a traditional pro style offense. That won't work in today's college football, in my opinion, especially in the Big 12. I just don't think Jimbo's the right guy for the job. No, it's not personal against Jimbo. Nothing, and Jimbo's had a lot of great success, but I just think in today's game, today's landscape at West Virginia, don't think he's the guy. That's just, again, my opinion. Jackson says Trotter, French, and the Carrico should have been in the line of the game, keeping everything. Well, Carrico actually got injured in the first half and never came back in the game. But other than that, I do agree. Trotter and French was in the game, but Trotter was not. They had him on the sidelines during that next to last drive, or maybe it was the last drive there, which makes no sense to me. Somebody asked me what they thought Wren would do. I don't think they're going to fire Neal Brown right now. I did sit down and do some math. Somebody posted on X. I think it was the football dude maybe, or I think his name, posted on X showing what Brown's salary is, and I calculated it. If they fired Neal Brown today, just theoretically today, they would owe him about $10 million, a little over $10 million, about 10.2 million, 10.3 million, somewhere in there. They would owe him for the remainder of his contract. It would be about $9.5 million for 25, 26, and 27, which is 75% of his salary. And then he would be owed about 75% of what they owe him for the rest of this season, which would be about $760,000. So add that together, it comes out to what? 10 million, 10.2 million, something like that. If they wait to the end of the year to fire him, they'd cut 7.6. They'd cut $760,000 off of that. So I don't see them. It just doesn't seem like West Virginia's style to fire a coach midseason, especially considering they haven't even started conference play yet. Because, I mean, there is still a possibility. I don't think it'll happen. I'm not confident, but there is a possibility they could do good in the conference still. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe they find a backup DB that is a gamer and just comes out and, balls out. I don't know. I don't know what they could do at this point, but I'm just throwing out, possibilities here. Maybe they play well and better in Big 12 play than we're expecting them to. And he ends up keeping his job. I don't know, but I don't think that's likely. I don't think it's, but what I think the most likely scenario I see playing out is they make a change somewhere on the staff, on the defensive side of the ball, whether that's, demoting someone, promoting somebody else, maybe bringing in a new coordinator. I don't know. I don't know if they would even do that midseason. But I think they'll make some tweaks, some changes on the defensive staff. I think they'll at least let Neal finish out all, if not at least most of the season. And if things have fallen off the rails and they don't make a bowl game, or even if they go 6-6 potentially, they'll probably move on to somebody else. That's just my opinion. But again, I'm not Ren Baker. That's obviously his decision to make. But he can't be happy because I'm pretty sure that he had very high expectations for this team and this program. And, Neal's not his hire. So, I'm sure he has some guys. I'm sure he has that list. But John Park says Rodney is not very successful and has had a lot of hype. Well, first off, you got to remember, John, Rodney Gallagher played quarterback almost his entire career in high school. He was just a great athlete, right? So he's having to learn how to play wide receiver. He's having to learn how to run routes, and he had that. It was a second reception of the game or third reception of the game yesterday. Very nice. He caught the ball with his hands, tucked it in, made a nice play. Rodney Gallagher is going to be a really good player. I have no doubt about it. But he's got to be put in the right positions and used the right way. You know what I'm saying? And Penn State went after him really hard, so he's that good. So but I do understand. But I personally have to put some of that on the coaches. And by the way, Rodney Gallagher's sister was one of the family members who spoke out on social media after the game. Just to let y'all know. Rodney's mom passed away, and his sister has been his. Obviously he still has his dad in his life, but his sister has kind of taken on that mother figure role. His older sister. Budwick the Beagle says Neal Brown needs more time. It's only been 6 years. Need more time for the climb. I'm going to assume he's being sarcastic. Let's see. What else we got here? Pitch just too good. WVU fan 13 says, I don't see Ren having any substantial conversation with Brown during the season. Here's the problem, though. Here's what could potentially happen. Yeah, Rocky, that would be something, wouldn't it, if they went out and go to Arlington? Yeah, I'd have to go back and delete this live stream, wouldn't I? But and now I lost my train of thought. Oh, here's the problem. I have already seen people on social media who have said they have already pulled their money out of Country Roads Trust. People have already pulled their money out of the Mountaineer Athletic Club. And if you get enough of that happening, they may not have a choice but to do something. I mean, if fans are going to stop showing up to games, and I know somebody made the point earlier that, season tickets have already been sold. I get that point, and that's fair. But you've also got concession sales. You've got merch sales. All of that will drop like a rock. People don't buy merch when they're disappointed in the team. That's one. And two, when people go to games, they buy something to drink. They buy something to eat. They might buy a snack. If you drink beer, you might buy yourself a few beers while you're there. You're spending a lot of money. Most big chunk of that money goes right back into the athletic department. When they start getting a hit on their bottom line, and they start seeing a lot of empty seats in the stadium, they won't have a choice but to do something. And you can bet that even I do give a small amount to Country Roads Trust. I have not pulled my money and don't intend to do so, at least not yet. But a lot of people are. And you've got people who donate a lot more than me that are going to do that. And especially if you get some of these big mega donors threaten to pull their money or they start demanding change, then guess what? They're going to make change, at least at the end of the year. Now, look, they're not going to do it today. If I had to guess, there's a bye week coming up after Kansas, I think. Yeah. I think they probably won't make any changes this week. They might wait to the bye week, and then if there are any staff changes, like, if they get rid of a defensive coach or they promote and demote, whatever, I look for that to happen during the bye week. I don't think they'll do it during a game week, if you know what I mean. How much influence will Pat have on this? I'm not sure, JDK. Probably. I don't know Pat McAfee, obviously, but he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's going to give his opinion. You know what I mean? Just as far as now, if he starts talking about it on a show, that might be different. You know what I mean? Because you're talking about national eyes. Then I might have a different opinion. But I don't think he's going to call Renbecker up and say, "Hey, man, you need to do something." John says he likes Rodney. He don't think he's being handled right. That's kind of what I think too, John. Rocky says he thinks our best QB might be the BYU transfer. I think we win yesterday with him or Nico. And that's something I wanted to talk about. Look, Garrett Green's the guy. Right now, he's a starting quarterback, and he should be the starting quarterback. But if this thing starts going off the rails, like it did in 22, it wouldn't surprise me a bit to see them bring Nico in because they know he's the future. Just go ahead and bring him in and start getting ready for the future. Now, that's assuming Brown's going to stay. Now, if Brown doesn't think he's going to stay, he's probably not going to give a flip about the future. So that might change things there, but yeah, so I wouldn't see it. But right now, Garrett, look, I've not lost faith in Garrett. Garrett Green is the leader of the team. I think the players respect him. I think they would run through a wall for him. I'm just not sure. There's something going on there. I don't know if it's his confidence. I don't know if it's him trying to do too much. I don't know if the coaches are in his ear telling him to stay in the pocket more. I don't know. But I just want to see Garrett relax and be himself and go make plays like I know he's capable of doing. And I think he'll do that at some point. Hopefully this week. Big Ears Bo says he wants PSU's OC as the next coach. Great offensive mind. Now that's not, that's definitely not a name to sneeze at for sure. Jackson says Castile was the best we had, talking about D coordinators. One more time, guys, I want to make sure I give a shout out to my channel sponsor here, Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. If you need a personal injury or medical malpractice attorney in West Virginia or Virginia, call 304-999-HURT or go to yourlawyeryourvoice.com, and they will take care of your problems, help you out, and make sure you're treated fairly. Again, that's Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. I saw a comment about the game day experience. We have one of the most expensive game day experiences in the country and nothing to show for it on the field. And that's fair. Renbecker, I did have him on the show, and he did that data that came out about that. He said a lot of the prices they used were not even accurate. So the game day experience at West Virginia is not as expensive as they made it out to be. And so it's not completely accurate. He says that he's very good. He said he makes a point when they're at away games. He walks around and looks at the pricing at the concession stands. He looks at ticket pricing. He looks at everything of other teams in the Big 12 and West Virginia, and even of rivals, like regional rivals as well, like Virginia Tech, Pitt, places like that. And he likes to make sure West Virginia is competitive with them. He doesn't want them to be too expensive. They don't necessarily need to be the cheapest either, but he wants them to be, in that range, and he's made sure that they have been. And I believe him. As a matter of fact, this year they have, I think, 3 or 4 stands throughout Mountain Pushcart Stadium where they're selling concessions at a much lower price. It's called the fan first pricing or something like that is what they're calling it. So they are doing things and taking steps to try to limit the cost on people. Doesn't mean it's not still expensive. It is, but it's not as expensive as that one article that came out a few months ago made it out to be. Jordan Couz says, I'm also worried that Jaheim White's arm injury may be worse than they are letting out. Can't recall him even ever fumbling before that arm injury versus Penn State, and has fumbled in each game since then. You know, Jordan, that's a great man. That is a great point. I had not thought about that, man. And you know, they only brought him. I think he only carried the ball one time yesterday after that fumble. And I didn't know if they were. I thought maybe they were punishing him, but that doesn't really seem like their style to do that. But maybe it could be his arm. You know, I don't know, because they kept running those, you know, outside zone runs outside the tackle box with CJ, and I'm thinking, if you're going to run that play, you need Jaheim in the game, man. He's a speed guy. He needs to run that play. But if he's hurt, that's a great point. And I'll be honest with you, I saw something on a message board I was on not long ago about Garrett maybe getting nicked up at practice or something. And look, I don't remember exactly what they said, and I'm not even sure if it's accurate. But I can't help but wonder if Garrett is banged up a little bit and they're not saying anything, because he's not running the ball like he used to. He seems like he's a little more hesitant to run. A couple times to me, it even looked like he might be walking with a limp. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, or if I'm just losing my mind. But he just don't look like the old Garrett Green. Yep, they hit CJ's injury a year ago. You're exactly right. They will do that. And if they do it to try to, you know, they might be doing it to try to get a competitive advantage, or they may be doing it to protect the privacy of the player. You know, there's multiple reasons they do that. And Redbone's exactly right. Fans don't mind the prices if we have a competitive team. That's the key. Do you think there's someone, Joshua Campbell says, do you think there's someone that can take on the DC role on the staff, or do you think we should outsource to find one? If they do it in the middle of the season, it would have to be somebody on staff more than likely, probably maybe Jay Couz, the linebackers coach. I would say Shadon Brown, but I'm not sure. He might be my first. He might be the first one. He might be my first. If I was going to make a change today, that would be the first change I would make personally. So I don't know that I would pick him. But yeah, Jay Couz. Oh, and TJ Jackson, Andrew Jackson. Sorry, TJ's the player. Andrew Jackson, the D-line coach, might be another option too. He seems to be really well respected by the players, but you got to realize the D coordinator has to call the defense. So it's more than just coaching the guys as far as what to do, how to play the position. They actually have to call the plays, and that's not everybody's cut out to do that. And I don't know enough about these guys. You know, I obviously don't see them at practice, but just from the outside looking in, I'm saying it would either be Kuntz or Andrew Jackson. Now, if it happens after the season, then I think you probably outsource it to somebody else. You know, so I've heard people say Tony Gibson. Tony Gibson's not going to come back to West Virginia unless he's the head coach. I just don't see that happening. Let me see. I saw somebody new in here. Kevin Vincent says, anyone know why P. Fox didn't play much yesterday? I only saw him a couple of times. You know, Kevin, I really wasn't looking that closely at that. I remember seeing him in the game on several snaps, but I really wasn't looking that closely at it, to be honest with you, man. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody in the chat room would know the answer to that question. Patrick Board, who's watching on X, says, how many times under Brown have we seen the 3 and out on offense where one first down ices the game? Unreal. By the way, thank you, Patrick. By the way, if you're watching on X, I ask that you please ask. What did I say? Ask. I ask that you please come over to my YouTube channel. Please check out the previous shows I've done over here. I do not, my pre-recorded stuff is only on YouTube. It's not on X. And so I ask that you please come over there, subscribe to the channel. Next big goal is 8,000. And then after that, the big one of 10,000 is my next goal. I'd love to get there as soon as I can. So if you haven't subscribed to me on YouTube, please do that. I do also cover the Big 12 here on the channel. Matter of fact, I'm going to plug. There's a show that right now is on Friday nights. I think we're going to move it to Thursday nights, hosted by another contributor here on the channel named Matt Thornsberry. It's called Matt's Big 12 Blitz, where he covers the entire Big 12. He previews the previous week's games, and we'll look ahead at the games coming up. Again, look for that on this coming Thursday night at 7 p.m. It's called Matt's Big 12 Blitz right here on the channel. So be on the lookout for that. And I also do a lot about conference realignment, especially during the offseason. Shaggy of WV says WVU will have to cough up some big bucks to get a game-changing coach. $3 or $4 million a year isn't going to cut it. But Shaggy, here's the problem. I don't know what else West Virginia can afford. Let's be honest. It's my understanding Neal Brown right now is about middle of the pack as far as Big 12 coaches go. So, they're not going to be able to – that's another reason I don't think you're going to get a guy like a Jimbo Fisher or, you're going to have to get a guy who's had success at the G5 level or a coordinator and promote him who's willing to work for $3 or $4 million a year. That's what you have to do, just like they did in basketball with Darren DeVries. You've got to find that right. And if they're the right fit, every coach has to start off on the bottom and work their way up. That's the way the industry works. So, and Ren Baker has done a great job of that throughout his career. And even so far at West Virginia, he's done good at it. Finding those guys who are diamonds in the rough, who are, great coaches, who fit the culture of the program. I think that's going to be important. And who understands what it takes to win in the Big 12 and at West Virginia, because it's so different than most other programs. You've got to find that right, and I think Ren Baker can do that. And if they choose to move on, then I trust Ren to make the right decision. I really do. I think he's the guy for the job. There's nobody else I would want to do it more than him. Real quick, I also want to give a shout out real quick. The guys over at WV Sports Now. I haven't done this in a while, but they partnered with me and here on the channel, and I appreciate that. But if you use promo code Couz, C-O-U-Z, at checkout over at WV Sports Now, if you want to sign up for the Holler, which is their insider behind-the-scenes stuff, and also gives you access to their ad-free content over there, it's called the Holler. Go to WVSportsNow.com, go to the Holler, and sign up, and you will get a 40% discount on a one-year subscription if you use Couz at checkout. It's C-O-U-Z at checkout. You get a one-year subscription for $20.99 instead of $34.99. So go do that today. Take advantage of that opportunity to get the behind-the-scenes content at WV Sports Now. Well, guys, I don't really have a whole lot left to say. I like Barry Odom too, Linda. I really do. He has Power 4 experience, and he's doing a great job at UNLV right now. He would be near if they move on from Neal, he would be one of the top of my list. Don't really want Norvell or Napier. I would probably Norvell may not be bad, but Napier, no. And I don't think Norvell's getting fired right now. And that's a great point, Thomas. If you get a really good recruiter in here who gets the right players, and then he hires really talented, and I think that's what Deion Sanders is trying to do at Colorado. I think he's trying to bring in assistants that are really good at working with the players and teaching them the game, teaching them how to play their positions and whatnot. And he's just going to be the CEO and do the recruiting and get the guys there and, be the motivator and all that. That may work, but you've got to find the right guy. But you've got to find somebody who's going to bring guys in who aren't looking just for a bag, because West Virginia can't compete in the NIL world with the Ohio States, the Alabamas, and all that. But they should be able to compete with the Kansas States, the Iowa States, the Oklahoma States, those teams. They should be able to compete with those teams. DJ, thank you for the 499 super sticker, man. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. Jason Candle's another good one. His name's come up a lot too. Rocky Statue says, I met Tavon and Bruce Irvin at Bent Willie's, or whatever it's called now, Friday before Penn State. Two really humble guys. Thanked us for our support. Good guys that had long careers. Should be on staff. I'm not, a lot of people want former players to be on staff, and I'm cool with that if they have good coaching experience. I don't want to hire a guy just because he's been a player. He needs to have, I want him to be able to coach. Not all players are good coaches, So if they don't have that ability to coach and haven't demonstrated that at some point, then I'm not sure that's the right move. Just my opinion. And maybe they will be down the road. Maybe they'll be great coaches, but I would rather them get that experience. Even if you hire them now, if you hire them, bring them in as grad assistants or something, that's one way you could do it and help them get that experience. But to bring them in and just hand them a position coach job, I wouldn't want to do that. Jeff Castile take the DC job. Jeff Castile, I think, is retired, Preston, so probably not. And, I'm not a fan of bringing Rich Rod back. His team is struggling right now. They're 0-3. I'm not a huge fan of recycling old coaches. It typically does not work. There have been very few exceptions to that, but it typically doesn't work. All right. I'm going to listen. I appreciate everybody's support. It's been an hour. I don't really have anything else to say. It's been a great crowd. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you all for hopping on here. Thanks for the support again. Shout out to Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, my sponsor here on the show. Thank them for their support. And oh, by the way, don't forget to check out Couz'sCorner.com for more West Virginia sports content and a lot of other items as well. Take care. Have a great day. Have a top shelf day. God bless. And cue Country Roads.